There's no better time than now before we get too deep into this project to start talking about architecture. And I'm not talking about architecture in the sense of buildings and how they look or how they're constructed, but how a software project is constructed. So we're going to lay out a little bit of a plan for what we're going to do in the next few videos. Right now in this project, as far as scripts go, and that's really what I'm referring to when I say project, we have the Raycaster class. Let's forget about the scene-like camera. All we have right now for this building series project is the Raycaster class. And if you take a look here at the Raycaster class, you can see that it's doing these actions that it shouldn't be doing. Really taking in input and then outputting a building. If you click on the proper layer, that's not something that we want to handle in the Raycaster class. That's something for a different class to handle. So let's take a look at the things that the Raycaster does properly. We have these two properties on it, the get the last hit position and get the last hit layer, that that's information that we're going to need for our other classes. But the other stuff, the stuff that we're doing update, at least when we click the mouse button, that's stuff that we don't want to do here. That's something for an input manager, that's something for a build manager. So let's take a look at how this should work. Okay, now let's take a look at our Raycaster. So we have these two great values. We have the position of the last hit and then the layer that we hit if we hit a layer, otherwise it's an invalid layer. So with that last layer hit, we can evaluate whether or not we're on a buildable layer, and with the last position hit, if we get a position, then we can say that we will build at that position should that be possible. But we need other classes to receive that information. So I think what we need to do is have an input manager. And the reason that I like to have an input manager is because I don't want to have all these different update methods in 10 different classes. And I want to consolidate all of my inputs. I want to put all of it into the same spot and know what's being called by what input. And really there's two forms of input. We can get input from our keyboard and we can get input from our UI. Obviously you could use your microphone and try to yell at, I mean, people have done games like that where you yell to keep a plane in the air, things like that. But right now all we want to do is base our input on button clicks, either through the UI or through the keyboard or through the mouse buttons. What we're going to pass that input to is actually the next thing that we're going to build in this series is the build manager. The build manager is going to handle the logic of, am I in a proper building position? Is my object going to collide with other objects? Things like that. That's what the build manager is going to take care of. In addition to the build manager, we're actually going to have to create what I call a build placer. Now this is kind of like a surveyor that goes out and says, okay, here we've got this plot of land and we need to know the measurements of it and if we can fit what we're trying to build here into that spot. So that build placer is also going to represent the object. So whenever we click on an object in our menu UI, we're going to represent that object in the world with this build placer. Okay, so let's wrap this up. It's important that we do this sort of planning before we do anything else, because this is going to save us a lot of time and a lot of headache in the long run. This will allow us to organize our classes and organize our projects so that things aren't intertwining. We don't want to create spaghetti code, and this is how we avoid doing so. Okay, the Raycaster class is just giving us some data. The build manager is going to take that data and say, okay, can we build there? Is it on the right layer? If we have a good position, I'm going to put the build placer there, and the build placer is going to tell me if I'm colliding with another object in that area, and if I'm not, then I can build. And that's it, right? And obviously the input is going to tell us what building to build, and it's going to tell us if we've received a click and therefore a build command. I really hope you guys like this video. I hope that you learned something. I hope that if you like it, that you put a like down here, and if you don't like it, well, don't do anything. If you like this content, if you like this series, please subscribe, and that way you'll be updated once I update these series. Thanks a lot. See you next time.